Hi everyone, I'm Kev.
And I'm Rachel.
And welcome to Hemel Vineyard. We are today going to carry on talking about the ruthless elimination of hurry by John Mark Comer. And the chapter that we're on today is basically the rule of life is the next chapter that we're looking at. Rachel, why don't you tell us about last week's chapter and what we learned?
So the last chapter we looked at was called The Secret of the Easy Yoke. And to sum it up, basically, John Mark Comer is saying that Jesus wants to give you his easy yoke, and the way we can do that is to be with him, to be like him, and to be his apprentice, to model our life after Jesus. And I was kind of left afterwards thinking, okay, that's great, what does that look like? And I think this week's chapter has helped me understand that a bit more.
Yeah, I think so, because I guess John Mark Comer, as he starts this chapter, he I guess paints a picture of Jesus' life, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he talks about the way that Jesus lived and the way that he didn't hurry. So when he loved interruptions is the way that he puts it in here. So when people said to him, like, this is happening, he didn't say, go and see my apprentice, did he? Or
No.
Go and, like, wait a minute, I've got like 10 minutes for you and then I'm off to do a TED talk or whatever. He framed it in such a way that it showed that Jesus like embraced those interruptions and talked to the people and met them in that situation.
Yeah, and that's made me really aware, since reading it, of how I interact with our kids, for instance. Like, don't always welcome their interruptions, and especially thinking about how many times we touch our phones a day. I've been thinking, okay, am I preferencing my phone over the kids? They're trying to talk to me, just put it down. So that was really helpful to think through those bits of Jesus' life where he loved interruptions, and to think, am I loving interruptions?
But I guess fundamentally what he's saying in this is I guess a carry on from last chapter last week where James and Catherine spoke to us, and he just says follow me, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's the whole premise. We are that apprentice, that disciple, and then what does that look like?
Yeah. So a bit later on in the chapter, he basically says, what would Jesus do? Which I'm sure many of us had that bracelet with WWJD on. And that's the question we should be asking ourselves for the rule of life, is what would Jesus do? And I thought, well, we should all have the bracelets again, shouldn't we?
Yeah, back to the 80s or 90s, whenever it was. But I guess when this chapter talks about a relationship, doesn't it, and how we need to foster a relationship with Jesus, and for that we need to take the time, don't we? We need to put time into it. So like when we first got married and when we were dating, we had to put time into our relationship, and we still do, don't we? Every so often you say, should we have a date night?
It doesn't happen now. Coronavirus.
Yeah, no going out. But we have to, don't we? We have to take that time aside. So, like, just even the other day, weren't we? We were saying, like, we were planning meals, and we were saying, okay, we can keep that aside, and we can have a date night with it, so we can feed the kids earlier, and then spend that time together to like work on our relationship. And it's the same with our kids and our friendships and all those things. And it's just, how do we then translate that into our relationship with Jesus?
Yeah. So John Mark Comer is saying that we need a schedule, we need a structure. So he looks at John 15, doesn't he?
So John 15, it's a rich chapter. There's so much stuff in it. I'm just going to read a chunk of it, and if you want to read more, just turn to it and have a look. But John chapter 15, starting at verse 1. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as also I remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself, but it must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. And the chapter goes on and you can read some more on it. But it was really interesting, wasn't it, the way that he used that passage and then structured around this part of the book.
So how do you create that structure for your life that enables you to flourish, like a plant flourishes when it's got a vine in this case flourishes when it's got a structure to grow against? And it made me think of my allotment, where I have got a grapevine and we've tried to put up a structure, but it's not very good, and the grapes this year have been awful. So you really do need, so what does that look like? And I love where it says, if your life with Jesus doesn't have some kind of structure to facilitate health and growth, it will wither away.
When we hear structure, some of us relish that. I love structure.
Depends on your personality.
Some people don't.
Who's done their Enneagram?
Yeah, exactly. Some people don't then like structure, though, do they? And so that can, I guess, sound really horrifying to have a structure with your relationship. But I guess, like, the rule of life, yes, while it's a structure, it's forming life habits, isn't it?
Yeah. Getting into rhythms and patterns that then sort of become automatic, I guess. Yeah.
And so I think, this is something that we've been sitting down and thinking about for a little bit anyway, haven't we? And over the coming weeks, we will start to look at different areas of our lives that we can bring this structure into. And I guess the fundamental thing within this is that we need to work out our own rhythms, don't we? So it can't be, what is Kevin Rach doing? What is James and Catherine doing? I need to copy that.
No.
Or what is John Mark Comer doing? And in fact, he doesn't actually tell us any of his structure, does he? Or any of his rule of life, because part of it's for us to work out our own, isn't it?
Yeah, it totally depends on your season in life. You know, have you got kids? Have you not? Are you caring for elderly parents? You know, are you studying? All of those things come into play, and it will always look different for each of us.
Yeah.
And I love, he does give a couple of examples, following on from that what would Jesus do idea, when he says, you know, you're bringing that into thinking about your kids, for instance. What would Jesus do if he had kids? Which he didn't, but if he did, he would probably spend a lot of time playing with them.
Yeah.
So that, for me, that was like, okay, I do spend a lot of time with my kids, but am I doing what they want to do, or am I putting my own agenda onto their time?
Yeah. And I think it's about making small changes in life, isn't it? And bringing that structure in slowly. And I don't know about you guys, but for us, having lockdown and the COVID-19 pandemic has actually enabled us to sit back, reflect, and start to think, okay, what are those things that we need to be doing? Now, we're not there, are we?
No.
Like, we've got a long way to go, but actually we started rhythms of life and routines within our day that mean that we can start to see our relationship with Jesus developing. And we're seeing that with the kids as well, aren't we?
Yeah.
And when we're starting to do things. But we know that there's more that we want to do. But the last thing we want to do is say, right, we're going to do this, and this, and then go like the clappers for a week and then fail, and then we'll feel awful about it. So, like, I think it's about making that one change. What is that one thing we can do this week? Maybe for the next 2-3 weeks, and then adding something else in.
Yeah, I have that rule with homeschooling the kids. If I want to start something new, I just start one thing, and then I do that one thing well until it becomes part of our rhythm, and then I can add something else. So even if that literally looks like at the beginning of the term that we only do maths every day for 2 weeks, and then we add in the next thing, you know.
Yeah. And I think also it's for the rule of life, it's looking at what are your values and what do you want to like foster in relationships with each other, and how we do that together, but also our relationship with Jesus. And one of our fundamental values as a movement is worship. So we were talking the other day, weren't we, about how do we incorporate worship into our like daily life, into our rule of life.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same as meeting together and being able to go out of an evening to an event or whatever it is and have that worship. So what are we doing as a family? Now, we probably should have been doing this pre-COVID anyway, but it's just like, so it's starting to think through those values that we have and what that means. There's this section in the book that when he talks about the vine and the way that, so we're talking about rule of life and how we connect in with Jesus, and that's when we're reading that John 15, that's the remain in me. So what are we doing to foster that relationship, to remain in Jesus? But then he has this section of the book that's actually quite harsh, isn't it? Because it talks about that vine that doesn't remain in him and then gets cut off and withered away. And John Mark Comer talks about like so many times he's heard people, like when he's talked about this, he said, look, people just give excuses, doesn't he? And some of them here are, like he says, anytime I teach on the rule of life and some of the core practices for life with following Jesus, I hear the same refrain. That sounds great, but I just don't have time. I'm in grad school. My work is demanding. I have kids. I'm training a marathon, etc., etc., etc. And I guess we've all been there, haven't we, with excuses? And I think for me, it's probably, I don't have time to do that. And so much of my life, I've been working in Christian jobs, and I'm very particular about not saying, okay, if I'm prepping a kids session when I used to work for a church, that is my study, because it's not, that's my work. But I haven't then had time when I've then invested in my relationship with Jesus. So I've almost said my work is too important, I'm too busy with work, whatever it may be. That's been my excuse for not creating a rule of life and not putting that structure into place.
And I know when I'm not making the effort to read the Bible and pray, like everything else suffers, like my relationship with you, the way I behave with the kids, like it really does. But I get into this kind of feeling of, it's too hard to restart reading the Bible. Like you can lie to yourself and say, God's going to be upset with me that I haven't spent time with him for such a long time, and that's just such a lie from the devil that I need to set aside when that happens, when I get out of the routine.
He goes on to say in the book, he then asks people that say that, like, how much time do you spend watching TV? How much time do you go online on social media? Go shopping, all those kind of things. Like, it's surfing the internet, watching YouTube videos, whatever it may be. It's like, actually, could I not do that for 10 minutes a day and spend that time with Jesus? Can I do something, I don't know, before I pick up my phone in the morning, or whatever it may be, to start to put those rhythms in to get that relationship and start that rule of life. The bit at the end of this chapter, it says, are you ready to arrange or rearrange your days so that Jesus' life becomes your new normal? And that's the big question, isn't it? That's what he finishes on. And are we ready to do that? Is that something that we are willing to actually take that time and start to invest and make that structure and that rule of life?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And we will hand back to James and Catherine.
Hi guys, it's so good to have you this morning, whether it be on Facebook or on Zoom. We are Hemel Vineyard Church, and we're just doing life together as we follow Jesus. If you want to be part of that journey, then feel free to come and join us, whether it be on Zoom, again on Facebook next week, or drop us a line and have a conversation with us. We'd love to hear from you. Another place you can find out what's going on would be to check out our website, which is www.hemelvineyard.org.uk. I pray this week that you would know Jesus' love and his presence with you in whatever you face. See you next week. Bye.